I'm full of the Christmas cheer and shit.
The Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Symptoms of an enlarged heart include shortness of breath, swelling, and death. Please call your doctor if you experience an excess of Christmas cheer.
What the fuck?
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hello, and welcome to our Christmas special. I'm opening the show because Mike is bye-bye.
I'm full of Christmas cheer. And what a good time, let me tell you.
You know, and Christmas cheer, I guess that's what the kids are calling it these days.
Yes, it is. And it comes in a little baggie from a fully legal place. It's a good time. I'm having a good time. The cat's having a good time.
Exactly. And as you can tell, this isn't a commentary that we're doing. That this was sort of a last minute thing because of timing constraints, plus visits might be kind of weird with Omicron. We're thinking it's going to be like last year, where right after Boxing Day they shut everything down again. And if that's the case, then what better way to do it than just have an off the cuff discussion on, like, not just Christmas specials that we liked, but maybe some Christmas traditions that are regular in our household. You've heard them peppered through things, and especially Michael, through your like social media presence, you'll show that like one of your traditions being you put your tree up really early, all this, and we can get into that. Yeah. But I mean, other than we did a bit of a gift exchange and sort of a last minute before Christmas visit, before maybe shit hits the fan. We haven't done a whole lot different in the last week. It's sort of been time off, except for you, I guess, school. Working on some school stuff. And hopefully that's going to come to a close very soon, and you can have at least a few weeks off before you have to start worrying about anything else.
Yeah. As it stands right now, my professor did give me a week's extension. So thanks, Anya. I'm just finishing my romance writing course. As of this recording, I am 10 or 11 pages in, about 2,700 words. I have to either get to 5,000 words, 7,500 words, or 20 pages, whichever comes first. So yeah, it's going okay.
So you got a bit of a Christmas project that you got to work on, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, as of this recording, I'm planning on finishing it by Christmas Eve, put it in the editing no later than Tuesday. Final product is ready to go by Tuesday night. I submit to my professor. Merry fucking Christmas. Happy holidays.
Exactly. So, I mean, outside of that, we haven't been gaming even that much because it's been sort of catch up on stuff. You would have heard a last gift guide with all the reviews of everything else that came out in December for us. There might be a few little stragglers that come in that we'll talk about maybe before the new year or just after. But outside of that, and outside of me having to post the Stargate show like starting out on New Year's Day, I'm basically like, this is the first time in 3 or 4 years that I've had like a couple weeks where we're completely off doing whatever we want, not even thinking about the website. That's going to be good for mental health in general.
Yeah, well, I actually was already talking with another podcaster. I was actually talking with David Dennis. He wants me on The Matrix, and he wanted me to record on Christmas Eve. And I was like, are you fucking crazy? Like, I will talk Matrix space people later.
Basically, you love Double D, but no.
Exactly. You could bother me after January 1st. So yeah, we are more or less off until like the 20th of January. So happy holidays or whatever.
Yeah, you'll see sporadic stuff in there. Just no regular scheduled, let's get together, gather all the news of the week and think on it sort of stuff.
Exactly. So yeah, so Alex proposed this idea to me yesterday, and like I said, it's probably a pretty good idea. We don't know quite what's going on in Canada. We don't know what's quite going on in the US. It's as the ancient Chinese proverb, I think, goes, may you live in interesting times. You know what? I'd rather get off and live in boring times next year, please.
Yes, stability. Can we have 2 or 3 years in a row where we don't worry about the bills, we don't worry about anything else. You just worry about like getting healthy and living happy.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
I would love a return to the time of when we could just look forward to movie trailers, video games, and I don't know, the latest book release. You know what I mean? I just want things to go back to a semblance of normal.
I blame that Cats movie. I swear somebody saw that movie and said, I have to end the world. And then 2 months later, everything shut down.
It's true that I saw that movie last year, and I kind of make it a Christmas tradition to kind of segue into that. Watch something weird and wonderful. And I remembered watching Cats.
And that was
pre-edibles.
Pre-medical marijuana. And it's
like, holy shit, that was a thing.
But yes, I guess sort of
it was Jericho timeline.
Yes. And with intros sort of being over, because it hasn't been so long since we've talked to everybody. And again, it's been sort of a few topics that we've worked on, and that's about it. Let's go back. Christmas traditions, like what did you watch? Did you watch things as a family as a kid around Christmas, or were there anything that stuck out, like the Rankin Bass stuff?
As a family, it wasn't until I was in high school that my adoptive grandparents and I would watch Christmas Vacation, because it was almost always on CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, for those of you that don't know. And they would air it a couple times before Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe we'd see Home Alone together. But for the vast majority, I watched a lot of Christmas specials on my own, just because I grew up in a single kid household. But I remember the Rankin Bass, Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer would play pretty consistently on a channel called Global from Toronto around the Christmas holidays. And I remember that being a thing. They'd show them on like Thursday or Friday nights from 7 to 8 around the holidays. And I remember watching those a fair chunk. As for Christmas specials, other than that, not really. It wasn't until like years later I started looking at different Christmas movies. But growing up, my mainstays for Christmas movies were always A Christmas Story, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Probably, let me see, Christmas Vacation, that's a given. Home Alone 1 and 2. And if I had to pick a fifth Christmas movie, I could make the obvious Die Hard joke, but that didn't come until college for me, because I didn't see Die Hard until I was halfway through high school. And it never clicked with me until years later that, oh, this takes place on Christmas. And there's all the subtext and layering of all that and whatnot. Yeah, that's pretty much what I remember. Oh, yeah. And randomly, because Alex, you're a Southern Ontario kid, they used to show on Global Saturday or every morning from 7 to 8 a.m. They would show usually Inspector Gadget and Care Bears, and like clockwork, you could count on them showing the Care Bears Nutcracker special.
Yeah, very true. That, or they would pair it with the Christmas Raccoons.
Yeah, and it would always be those two things you'd see. I'm trying to think. I don't remember many other cartoon Christmas specials that would air consistently. I seem to remember ones from Fox Kids. Actually, if you really want to take a trip back in time, folks, and you can do this, I guess the legality is dubious. It's on YouTube, so who gives a fuck? You can find the complete, I think it's from 1993 or 1994. Someone has a recorded from an Atlanta area television station for Fox, the Eek the Cat and other Fox Kids cartoons hosts, called the Cool Yule. and it's like a 4-hour programming block, and it's all the Christmas themed episodes of all the Fox kids shows at that time. And I remember watching that a lot as a kid, actually. Now that you mention that, Alex, yeah, I watched a lot of Fox Kids. And although I never did see the Power Rangers Christmas special, because that was a fan club exclusive, but you can get it on the DVD set now, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I don't seem to remember CBS or ABC doing much. I remember a Garfield Christmas, which I watched that on YouTube the other day, and I don't remember it being so mean.
A lot of it would have been tied into YTV since they bought up the rights to a lot of CBS and ABC shows. So I don't know. Were you a YTV kid?
No, actually, I never got YTV until I moved out on my own in 1999. My parents had satellite, so I would see, and I'm pretty sure I've told this story before on Twig. I'm almost certain of it. But when satellite used to be way, way different, you would go to something called transponder channels. And I remember one night in the mid 90s, I was looking for something, probably porn, to be honest with you. But I came across, they were playing the X-Files at midnight. And X-Files at that time was a Friday night show, which is weird because it was the death slot, but it still did tremendously well. However, this was at midnight. So I just assumed, okay, I'm watching the Pacific Coast feed because I was that clever of a kid. And I was like, okay, it's just someone out in California is watching this, neat. But after the X-Files ended, they would show bumpers for Fox Kids shows. So I remember them showing, like, coming up this morning on Fox's X-Men, the animated series, or Spider-Man. And I'm like, dude, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. What the fuck is this? And I could watch the entire Saturday morning lineup before 4 a.m. if I stayed up from midnight to 4. I could watch everything and I could sleep in Saturday morning.
I'm wondering, that wouldn't have even been the East Coast. What time zone would that have been?
That was probably a Pacific repeater station, probably from Los Angeles, broadcasting it to the local affiliates, because between every show, you would get commercials for, like, I don't know, Mighty Max or Baby Oopsie Daisy or whatever. You'd get certain commercials that were baked into the programming, but then you'd get about a 30 to 45 second bumper where it would just be text over a test pattern that would say, place local content here.
Literally, you got the pirate feed of their unscrambled. Basically, that's what they would broadcast to the local affiliates that they would then tape to a Betamax tape.
Yes.
Instead of having to mail it across the country.
I know, and I was so proud as a kid finding this out.
Proud that your grandparents had pirate satellite.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, like I remember hacking the Playboy channel because you had to get onto it in a very specific way. I remember the Spice channel, but I remember my
parents,
wholesome
for Christmas.
I know, right? But it's weird. My parents got satellite mostly for movies, and I never watched any of it. It was only ever me. So that's where I would watch, like, Cinemax and HBO and all these other movies. And I remember I'm pretty sure that's how I saw Ernest Saves Christmas. I think it was on Cinemax at one point during the holidays. And that was, like, my favorite Christmas movie besides A Christmas Story for, like, years, because every kid in the 80s and early 90s loved Ernest. You had the wild success of Ernest Goes to Camp, which we did on this show earlier this year. Ernest Saves Christmas, 1988, I think, was super successful. And then you had Ernest Goes to Jail, Ernest Scared Stupid, and then the lesser returns of the other ones. But it was one of those movies, it just made me feel good. And I remember even watching that and stuff like Home Alone during the summer months, because as much as I just said my parents let me watch TV, they didn't. From about 8 a.m. till about midnight, my parents were stuck in the living room watching TV all day. So I relied mostly on videotapes and what I could tape and what I could rent from the video store. Come to think of it, Alice, I don't think I've ever rented a Christmas movie. Like,
ever?
A legit, yeah, ever. I don't really think I ever have. I've seen Christmas movies that have been brought over to my house. No, wait, that's not true. I rented The Ref because it had Dennis Leary in it, and that's a pleasant surprise of a movie.
I think a lot of people watch most of these Christmas movies, especially the 80s and 70s ones, would have been on rerun TVs in the late 80s, early 90s as kids for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that the one that people had to probably rent if they didn't see it in theaters that was really big was the Santa Claus when that came out, the Tim Allen movie.
I remember,
and maybe the Michael Keaton Jack Frost.
I saw that actually. Yeah, that one I did rent because I wanted to see it because it just it had fucking Batman in it. But speaking of the other one you just mentioned, what was it again? Sorry.
The Santa Claus.
The Santa Claus. So I was in grade. What year did that come out, Alex? If you can look it up real fast.
1 second though. Yeah, while I do that, I should say that I didn't have pirate satellite, but we had cable when I was in kindergarten in the early 90s, and then we didn't get it again until I was in end of grade 3. Mm-hmm. But I was a YTV kid, and a lot of that was, it was American reruns or Canadian things. Anything Nelvana made showed up there. But they would run their own Christmas programming with the YTV PJs and then the Grogs and everything. So like they would have every day after school and every day in the morning on the Breakfast Zone, they would have a skit that ran through for the whole week of a Christmas theme each year.
Yeah, and that's something YTV I think did better than Nickelodeon, because Nickelodeon would rarely have interspatial hosts, but YTV was kind of known for it. And
YTV copied the Much Music
VJ format,
framework, which technically was a copy of MTV, which was technically a copy of the pitch made for Much Music years earlier. So like it all comes down to like they said, hey, this is what's popular with teenagers and people in their 20s. Let's duplicate that entire format and try it on people ages 3 to like 14.
Yeah. All right. So what year was the Santa Claus?
1994.
Okay. So 1994 minus 1994 minus 1981. So I was not 3,900.
You were 13.
13. So I remember taking a date to this movie. I think her name was Tanya, but I'm not 100% sure. And I remember actually having a pretty good time at this. It was one of the times where I was just sort of getting out into the dating world. 13. I guess I might have been grade 6 or 7. And yeah, I just remember seeing this, having a really good time with it. And obviously this was when Tim Allen was really hitting it home with Home Improvement.
And he wasn't so annoying yet.
Yeah.
Doing the same shtick.
Yeah, he hadn't hit peak level Tim Allen, which he'll be remembered for 3 roles in his life. He will be remembered as Buzz Lightyear, Tim the Two-Man Taylor, and I think you could probably make a pretty good case for the Santa Claus.
Yeah, I would say so. There are a lot of kids that never watched any of his TV shows or the new one he ran. What is that one still on, or is it like 9 years he did?
I think it's over now.
But like, wasn't the entire premise of that show, I'm a boomer and the millennials just don't get it?
Yeah, it was a very.
It was supposed to be a family comedy, but it caters to people 60 plus.
Yeah, it was a family comedy that leaned very Republican era and very conservative, yet it aired on, I want to say ABC, then it got picked up by Fox for its final couple seasons, and then they randomly crossed over with the old Home Improvement where he literally meets himself in a parallel universe.
Oh god, I have to actually find that now.
Yeah, it's weird. I've seen clips. And Jonathan Taylor Thomas comes back, but whatever. But yeah,
I'll say, yeah, he's not going to be really known for that, even though that's his most recent big thing. I mean, he'll be remembered for those, and then maybe Wild Hogs.
I was going to say, don't you dare say Wild Hogs.
And what was the other one? Christmas with the Cramps?
Yeah, Christmas with the Cranks or something.
Cranks, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck right off. But yeah, like it's weird. I hadn't thought about that in so long. And to bring the room down for a moment, me and Christmas have never really had a good time. And it's funny because growing up, my grandparents were all yay gung-ho Christmas until I was about 14, or not 14, probably about 10 or 11. Then it became, here's breakfast, here's your shit, now fuck off. And that kind of sucked. And then years later, I was in college and I was in a very depressive state. I'll let you take that to where your mind would logically go next. Things could have ended remarkably badly. I got dumped on Christmas by my first fiance, actually back in 2001, I think it was. I got dumped in a Burger King of all places. But it's funny. I used to hate the holidays, but it wasn't until I met Blair that things really changed for me. Like, I never really saw what a family was supposed to be like at Christmas, or at least what media had given me the impression of, because a lot of my friends, even growing up, didn't come from traditional homes, you might say. And it was just different being around that level of family, which I'd never experienced, is obviously being adopted and being an only child, whatever. But just seeing how they would get together. And I remember they showed me one of the first years we were together. They showed me the worst Christmas special, and I will die on this hill. Although the outtakes for this are particularly hilarious. It's a Muppet thing, and it's not a Muppet Christmas Carol. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. Oh my God, that is pain.
Blair and her family have tried to get me to watch that, and I have given the stare of death every single time I've seen just the cover of it.
There is a outtake though online, and it's from the puppeteers that are setting up a scene, and there's this wheel of cheese that's supposed to go down the street or something, but when they keep setting up the shot, they keep fucking it up, and the guy who's the puppeteer for Emmett Otter also does the voice. So he's just sitting there cracking wise the whole time, every time they fuck up the shot. And that slayed me. That was way funnier than the whole hour and a half of whatever that was. But it's amusing as all shit. I think I've seen a Muppet Christmas Carol. I think I saw that in theaters, but I'm not 100% sure either. I seem to remember Pepe. Is he the rat or the shrimp? It's Rizzo the rat and Pepe the shrimp, right?
Yeah, he's a prawn. Yeah,
the prawn. Yeah, that I enjoy those two characters on a completely unrelated note. I seem to remember the Simpsons Christmas specials being kind of a big deal. Growing up.
The TV pilot was a Christmas special.
Yeah, I remember watching that with my parents, actually. Again, thanks satellite. I remember when Fox was being launched, when that started out with like Married with Children and all these other terrible sitcoms. Yeah, but I remember The Simpsons being a thing.
The first year, I think the only thing that survived was Married with Children.
Maybe Cops, or was that later on?
That was 88, I think. So it was either 87 or 88. But like they had a couple dramas. There was like a werewolf show. There was it was shows that would have been regularly made for syndicated programming, like the kind of stuff you would have seen like the 80s Twilight Zone and stuff, but it was like low budget cable or syndication shows. They did like 6 or 7 different ones or something, and the only thing that survived, they put it out. Married with Children was the only one that had like mediocre but decent enough ratings. Like, we'll keep it. And then they started fresh in 88 with The Simpsons.
Yeah,
and they basically, like, the Fox network was built on 3 shows: Cops, Married with Children, and The Simpsons.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember Simpsons being the talk of the playground in the late 80s, early 90s. I remember my parents got me for Christmas. I went to Disney World for my one and only time. I must have been like 9 or 10. And my grandmother got me this giant stuffed Bart Simpson that had one of those pull strings in it. And after Christmas, because I'm an evil and ungrateful child, decided to cut open Bart Simpson and remove the voice box from his ass. I took that thing into my grade 8 classroom and just kept playing with it. Hey man, my shorts. I remember people getting so mad. I remember my teacher, Mr. Collins, says, Mike, if you don't put that fucking thing away.
Well, you remember, like, talk about sensibilities changing. You remember the argument was that they should cancel The Simpsons because cartoons are meant for children, and that's an adult show. It's too adult for children.
Yeah,
and they're talking seasons 1 to 3 of The Simpsons.
Let's say, the most common fucking milk toast, boring, whatever.
It's more the early, like they had a lot of heart, but those seasons were more tame than what we see on regular sitcoms now.
Oh God, yeah.
So, like, I see that, and then I like fast forward, and it's like, well, what's happening on South Park this week? And it's like, oh dear Lord, they're just like shitting in each other's mouths and
all sorts of other horrible shit.
Yeah, and again, and they're not getting. I mean, it's on cable, but like if you took The Simpsons now and compared it to back then, or showed people back then what it is going to be like in 30 years, first of all, they'd go, "Oh my God, 30 years? Are you serious?" But outside of that, and outside of the whole argument of, "Oh, it's crappier now," blah blah, just the idea of what they can get away with without even having to worry about censors. Like, it's so amazing. And you look at how primitive the animation was, but I think that Simpsons Halloween special, I'm not Halloween, sorry, the Christmas special, the one with Santa's Little Helper, the first, like the pilot, that might be the most rerun episode of television ever.
I could believe it.
Because The Simpsons is on everything. And I think that episode probably airs, if I had to do a conservative estimate, I would say 20 times a year on various syndicated channels and on Fox itself and everything. And that's been doing that for what, like 33 years?
Easily. Like, I remember, like, it was a thing where they, like, the FX network would, like, show The Simpsons for, like, hey, we're going to show all 600 plus episodes over the course of, like, a few weeks for 24/7. And up here in Canada, for example, there were so many channels that had the rights to The Simpsons. You could almost go network to network, and you could almost have a 2-hour Simpson block. Like, you would always have an hour here and there. It was really weird.
And it was, what was weird was Fox was a cable channel here. It was the last channel of basic cable. Like across the board, you'd have up to 2 to 28. It was Fox. It was 28 in Ontario. It might have been in other provinces a slightly different number, but it was pretty much the last one on the regular dial that you could pick up on a converter box. If you didn't have like a fancy cable box, you got just one of those cheap ones that would, convert the cable signal back to the old, like, not even RF. It was like those tuning fork style VHF things, right? Mm. So it being the last channel on there, not everybody had cable. I mean, if you did, at least it was on basic cable. But if you just had antennas, it would show up on Global. It would show up on City. It would show every single broadcast channel at some point had The Simpsons.
Yep. CTV never did. But almost every major network.
That's right. And I would say CBC didn't either. But I know it was Global.
CBC did, but only on Monday to Friday from 5 to 6 was Simpsons Hour.
That's right. But Global and City had it on weekends and random times of the day.
Yeah, and it was always between 5 and 6 on City, and then you'd randomly get like the Friends Hour or Everybody Loves Raymond or something. It was such a bizarre lineup.
For our American listeners, what happens up here, there's generally two things with American shows. Either a channel, random channel, purchases the rights to that particular show to, used to be they sometimes air at a different day, or they air simulcast. But they'll purchase it. So like one channel that could be like our equivalent to CBS would pick it up, and they might have their primetime schedule would be a show from Fox, a show from ABC, a show from NBC, and then a Canadian show. So like we don't really have that whole thing where like they're siloed. It's every channel for itself. They purchase individual packages. Or you'd have something like, remember once in a while CTV would just flip and you'd get Buffalo channels and it would turn into CBS for like certain days prime time. And that's before on the cable packages and over the air you could pick up the American channels.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of weird, but yeah, like that's childhood with that was a lot of those. Like you said, the Rankin Bass ones weren't really a thing so much for you, or did you watch those old ones? Like mine was Santa Claus is Coming to Town. That was the one I
saw that for the first time the other night.
That was my favorite.
Well, on very much a lot of Christmas cheer. Me and Liam watched that the other night, and I was like, the German guy, give him the fucking yo-yo.
Yeah.
And I was very upset.
But yeah, that's my favorite one. The Little Drummer Boy was the one I very rarely watched because it had the worst audio, and like as a kid it scared me. It was because it was the earliest one. It's just the lowest quality.
I've actually never seen that one. I was actually going to watch it the other day because it's on YouTube, right?
It's a little creepier. The frame rate's a little weirder. It looks like Nightmare Fuel. So go ahead.
Rudolph was, I think, the best of the Rankin Bass.
I just want to be a dentist.
Yeah, Herbie and that fucking prospector dude. Like, yeah, like I loved that one. I always thought it was good. It was well, I guess for a children's special, it was well acted.
I think it's Rudolph and Frosty are the ones that are watched the most by people, but Santa Claus was my favorite one. And as far as Christmas movies, I hate Christmas Story. I've tried watching it 5 times. I hate it. It's so boring to me. I don't find anything in it funny. Maybe it's a thing with people.
Darren McGavin is what sold me on it as the old man.
Maybe it's just people having to watch it over and over again on TBS as kids.
Yeah, that's such a bizarre thing. You own the rights to it, and you're just gonna, hey, it's Christmas Day. Do you want to watch Ralphie get shot in the eye 25 times? Strap the fuck in, boys, because here we go.
See, my version of that I always liked watching, and it was so hard to come by, and I had to rent it now and then because it didn't always air on TV. Was is this just called Santa Claus the Movie? It was the Dino De Laurentiis produced.
Oh, the one from like 85, right?
Yeah, the one that's super high budget and it tanked horribly in theaters. But I loved it. Like, to me, like that was a super high budget Santa Claus movie. I don't think we've ever had just a Santa Claus movie like that where they've just put the money into it, where it hasn't been just a goofy comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was mine. I never watched It's a Wonderful Life as a kid. I've only ever seen bits and pieces of it.
Same here. I've always wanted to see it though.
I did see in theaters and then on video the Muppet Christmas Carol, which it holds up. The songs aren't as good as I remember. Like I watched it recently and I was like, eh. But our family Christmas tradition was, I forget which channel used to air. Was it CB? It was either TVO or CBC. Used to air The Wizard of Oz every single year, like either a few days before or during the week of Christmas. So it was like a family tradition. You'd make a bunch of popcorn, have some Christmas cookies, and you'd watch Wizard of Oz. Even though it's not a Christmas movie, it's just one of those things where they had the rights, and that's when they would show it.
That's another movie I've never seen, is The Wizard of Oz.
Really? There's 4K copies of that, man. That is worth watching, and it's one of the few musicals that I like, and I've seen it like 100 times.
I've seen Return to Oz more, which is weird. Mostly because it's scary and fucking strange and full of severed heads.
Well, this is scary in its own right.
But yeah, like some of the Christmas movies, I've always wanted to make a point to see, like It's a Wonderful Life. I've never seen Miracle on 34th Street, either new or old.
Saw the new one. I didn't like it. I didn't like the old one either.
There is something I've wanted to do back when I had a different faith system, so to speak, and I'm even still rediscovering my faith now. And it's mostly because of Home Alone, and I know that sounds strange. When Kevin goes to midnight mass on Christmas Eve, I've always wanted to see what that would be like. Because up here in Canada, anyway, I'm sure this happens in the States via your local affiliates. Certain channels will go to the biggest church or whatever in the area, and they'll show Christmas mass before the news, or they'll cut away from the news a little bit early. And I don't know, there's something weirdly comforting about that. I mean, taking the politics of the religion out of it. There's something about that gathering I find very unique and very, very, very powerful. And that's one tradition from the holidays I kind of wish I had a chance to experience at least once when I was a participant in that particular faith. I don't know. It's funny looking back at all the traditions that aren't even a part of our families now. Like I said, like right now with me and Blair, we have a fairly large family, all things considered, and we consider like you and Liam and Shannon to be a part of our family. And I know this year we're trying to show Shannon, I think it is Christmas Vacation from National Lampoons, because that movie is infinitely quotable. It reminds me very much of my late father-in-law Dave. And
that's the one that I saw. I saw as a kid a bunch of times, and it grew on me. It wasn't one of my favorites, but now when it's one of those things, if it's on, I'll watch it.
Yeah, like it's one of those Christmas movies that's weirdly timeless, despite the fact it does happen in 1980 something. And Chevy Chase has a great charisma to him as Clark Griswold. Beverly D'Angelo is great as the wife. Johnny Galecki, one of his first roles, as Rusty. I think it was Juliette Lewis as the daughter. Like, just, it's a great movie from top to bottom. And Randy Quaid, before losing his mind.
I think the mind was gone. The difference was
he turned it on and off.
He had some restraint.
Yeah, but yeah, like it's, I don't know, like other Christmas movies. I remember I was a big Home Alone kid for years, and I remember the VHS ad campaign being so aggressive for that. Like it was like, coming soon from Fox Home Video or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
Home Alone for $19.99.
It wouldn't have been $19.99. It would have been $199. Or but great resale value where you can sell it for $39 after it's been rented 600 times.
I seem to remember around like I'll have to look it up later. But
it's I know Home Alone and Terminator 2 were the first ones to come out at the sub $100 price.
Yeah, and I seem to remember Home Alone 2 had a bigger ad campaign because obviously they saw the success of the first movie. They're like, hey, I like money. But
he had blown up, and that's right when he was signing deals to do like Richie Rich and all that.
Yeah, like Richie Rich and Blank. Was he Blank Check? No. What am I thinking of?
No.
He did another one.
He was Richie Rich. Around that time, he said like.
Yeah, there's another one he did, but I can't think of what the fuck it is. Whatever.
I'm looking up. Did you see that he recreated scenes from that movie for? I forget. Was it Amazon or somebody?
Yeah, and it was like an Amazon Alexa commercial or something.
Yeah, it was Amazon. That's what it was.
Yeah,
they tried to recreate scene for scene with that. They spliced in some stuff, and it was pretty good overall. I like when they do that sort of stuff.
I one of the things I specifically remember coming out of the Home Alone craze was the Home Alone Kevin doll, where it had the face and the screaming thing. But I remember this is the first time I'd ever seen this ever done. There's a plot device. Basically, what makes the movie possible is a electronic tape recorder called a Talk Boy. And there were two versions of this. I had one of them. I didn't get the second one till later.
Did you get the big one with the actual tape recorder?
Yes. Oh, in that case, there are 3 variants, but there are 2. The 2 that I was aware of. So the first one in Home Alone, do you remember how he does the slow motion playback of Uncle Frank's voice? In the first version of that toy, that function did not exist. Later revisions, when there was the Talk Boy and the Talk Girl, which was a pink one, had the ability to slow down or speed up speech. The first variation did not. And the first variation of the Talk Boy had really shitty wiring in the microphone because you could extend it via that little plastic cap at the end. And that's where I learned how to solder at age like 11 or 12 because my microphone broke. And I remember my dad or my grandfather, John, helping me try to figure this out. And he's like, well, that connector's come loose. What do you do? And I'm thinking, well, and at that time I was taking shop class at my local elementary school, and I had just learned how to solder basic LEDs. And I remember just a little drop of solder and it worked. Didn't last too much longer after that, just because the wiring in those things was such shit. But that's the first time I think I ever owned a movie prop, so to speak. The first time where the movie was in my hand. Although one thing I always wanted from that movie is he has this weird thing of bubble bath. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it looks like the monster's head and like he squishes the top of it and it shoots out. I've never seen that for sale ever. Yet supposedly I think it's real.
There's stuff like that was out around that time. I had like an Optimus Prime one that did something similar. But I didn't have that. I wanted that. What I got instead was a Yak Back.
Yes, I had those too.
But my Yak Back, it was a Yak Back that was a licensed version of that. So it was Yak Back branded, but it was also a Talk Boy.
I think I remember that vaguely, but I'm not sure.
Basically, it was a miniature one, and it did everything that a Yak Back did, but it was shaped like a Talk Boy. So that's cool. I just found out. Okay, I looked it up. After Home Alone, so he did Uncle Buck and Home Alone basically back to back, and that's what blew him up.
Yeah.
With a little appearance here and there as a whatever
Page Master or whatever.
But yeah, after he did My Girl, but then it was Home Alone 2. Then he did The Good Son, The Nutcracker, Getting Even with Dad, The Page Master, and Richie Rich, all in 12 months.
Maybe I'm thinking of Getting Even with Dad.
That's the one with Ted Danson.
Yeah, that's the Ted Danson movie.
So
which is weird. His career was never the same after Cheers, but that's neither here nor there.
I like Becker.
Yeah, Becker was a good show. That show I did like.
And the Good Place, he's amazing in that. But anyway, beside that, yeah, like I think that's basically our traditions from kids. Now let's get quickly into traditions we have now. I'll go first because you have more interesting ones. Okay. For me, recent ones is we watch Bad Santa 1 and 2 because I'm a horrible person and my family loves horrible movies. Horrible as in like talk about Christmas cheer, right, with Bad Santa. So we watch those. As far as like, I don't really put decorations up anymore because I'm jumping between family members' houses when we're doing that. So there's not really any reason for me to do it here. And we never really did caroling or anything like that. But we always make a point of trying to watch, Bad Santa 1 and 2 or and something else to go along with it. As far as like Christmas related movies that maybe take place at Christmas, I was never like the Die Hard guy where it's like Die Hard's a Christmas movie. So what? If it is, it is. If it isn't, it isn't. I don't really give two craps about that. But what I try to do as a family, we go into Retro Ontario, and they'll do a stream of like YTV, like a live stream of like 8 to 10 hours of entire like television blocks that people had taped of like Christmas programming from like the mid 90s, and they even sometimes have ones from like CBC and stuff. So you can actually, it's like jumping back in time 25 years where you can have it on the background and it'll have all the bumpers and everything in between. I think that's pretty cool. So we do that. And then my uncle used to make a Chex Mix, like a but a fancier one that he would, Worcestershire sauce and different things. And he moved this year out to Nova Scotia when he retired. So I'm like, damn it. And it's been like 2 years since we got together with that side of the family at all. So I've been jonesing. I've been scratching it, itching myself. I'm like, what's going on? Why do I feel so strange? Oh, I don't have no Chex Mix. So I'm going to make it myself this year when I go to my mom's. And if it turns out good, I'll put a little in a Ziploc baggie for you.
Yeah, our family, or at least they used to, till a lot of health problems started showing up in our family in the last couple of years. My mother-in-law does these very similar containers. They're like 2 or 3 cups full of mixed nuts and candies and whatever, right? But there's like a puzzle on them, and you have to guess who that person is. And it's like a little riddle, or it'll be a random factoid about them. Mine are notoriously easy to spot. Like was on TV this year, Mike, sort of thing. But it might be graduated nursing school, or was in a mascot costume, stuff like that. And we would figure out who each other got at Thanksgiving. And then when Christmas came around, we would hand out the things like, oh, you got cousin Blake, you got cousin Ethan, or whatever. And that's a tradition I thought was really, really fun. Another thing that we do, and this has been a more recent thing, one of my acquaintances, and I might even dare call him a friend, is a DJ from a radio station in the States. And he does what he calls the Santa Tracker show on WMMR. And it's a live Christmas Eve call-in show. You can request music. You can do all sorts of fun things. And that's always fun because there's something special about listening to live radio when they really lean into the Christmas spirit, when they really lean into character and they have fun with it. And there aren't too many stations that I can think that ever really did that. I mean, you might get the odd news station now when they do their newscast on Christmas Eve, like, and here's our NATO Santa tracker. And, you might get a fun little chuckle here and there.
A much bigger thing
in the 80s and 90s.
I would say 70s and 80s on rock radio. It was a much bigger thing there. And then maybe a little less into the 90s, but a lot of those shows then transitioned and it was a much bigger thing to watch it on like City TV, Much Music, and YTV. That seemed to be where they switched that sort of live, like they would even do like live call-in shows with Santa, or you do like the equivalent of TRL Live, but like the Canadian version. What was it? Just the Much Countdown, I think.
Yeah.
And they would do Christmas theme, videos and all that right at Christmas, or you'd have call-ins or the news and all that, or people would dress up, so that it became more of a visual thing. I guess the evolution of that would be that almost certain radio stations are doing it again, like I guess, or it never stopped, like when you listen to MMR, or maybe live streams, people doing it now for like Twitch and YouTube streaming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's another thing. Speaking of Twitch and YouTube, weird Christmas tradition I've been doing because I'm that asshole. You know how Blair's family used to put on a DVD of a Yule log burning, despite them at the time owning a real fireplace, which was really, really, really nice.
But that's also effort. That's effort to do.
Yeah. So in recent years, somebody has uploaded Darth Vader on fire from the end of Return of the Jedi, and just really cranked the fire effects into it so you can really hear him cooking.
You mean you mean the end when they have the bonfire and he's getting the Viking funeral and it's just the helmet burning?
Yep. People have turned that into a Yule log, and for the last 5 years, I've been running it.
Your description of at Christmas we watched Darth Vader really cook.
He smells like leathery burnt bacon.
No.
But yeah, I make sure to put that on every Christmas morning. It pisses my sister-in-law Kara off to no end. She's like, "Can you put on the real one?" No, my house, my rules. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other traditions. We always do what's called hors d'oeuvre night, where we typically do this the night before or on Christmas, where we'll just have a bunch of finger foods. We'll hang out, typically watch National Lampoons. But with COVID and everything, we've had to switch to virtual. So we're going to try and do it this year. It ultimately depends on a lot of health factors right now, because my mother-in-law is like in her 70s and me and Blair are both immunocompromised.
Yeah, waiting till everybody gets their shots.
Yeah, exactly. So we're trying to balance that out. But we did virtual present opening. Thank you for the wonderfulness that is the iPad and having those cameras that can tilt and pan and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else we really do.
Well, your thing is you put your Christmas tree up on Halloween.
Yes, and there's a very important reason for that. Okay, so long story short, and I probably told this on the podcast before, but So when I lost my leg in 2017, I think it was either this year or the year before, I said as a gag to Blair, "Hey, why don't we put our Christmas tree up at fucking Halloween? That'll fucking do something," because that's me, right? But spending Christmas in the hospital from November 17th is when I went in, had my surgery on November 26th or 27th, and then I got out at the beginning of February. That sucks, being stuck in the hospital for that long. Spending Christmas in the hospital is one of the most depressing things you will ever experience, I promise you. So I decided me and Blair were going to keep the tradition of putting the tree up on Halloween because it's funny to us anyway, and it allows us to spread the holiday out just a little bit longer and have it mean something different. Like, it hits just a little bit different than it would if it just went up in the beginning of December or whatever. And there's always that fucking Karen. It's disrespectful to our veterans. They fought and died and blah blah blah. So at one point, when this argument was coming to a head in the early to mid 2000s, when I was with Blair in 2008 anyway, I remember asking her grandfather, who was a World War II veteran. His name was Mel Henry. He was a radio operator and a support engineer of some type. He built bridges, basically, when the Germans would blow them up. But I asked him, like, do you give a shit when people put their Christmas trees up? He's like, no. Why would I? Like, fuck right off. And it's funny whenever, hell, here's another, I was going to say a Halloween tradition, Christmas tradition. Go to any Facebook page that asks this type of question and just read the comments. You could get real drunk off some real good eggnog if you just took a shot for every Karen post.
I was gonna say, my mom has a little OCD about it. She puts the tree up exactly 12 days before Christmas, just takes it down exactly 12 days after.
That's weird.
But yeah, and also we did the Reddit gift exchange a couple times, and then it shut down.
It's sad that that's going away, and I don't even know why.
COVID.
I guess that makes sense. It's just
it was a liability thing. They're pairing you up with somebody else. Is there a liability involved with them pairing you with somebody that gets sick?
Yeah. All right.
So
all right.
I'm almost positive it was a legal decision. Because it didn't make sense as to why if it was about certain gifts, why couldn't you just do it as a pen pal service where it's mailing cards?
Or you have to buy it from a service and have it shipped direct.
Yeah, like why? Like, who could have stepped in? Postables, or one of those ones where you sign up for a card online. Like, you pick the card, you write your note, it prints it, and then it mails it for you. There's no reason why they couldn't have stepped up and said, hey, we're going to partner with the Reddit Secret Santa, and we're going to do it for half price for anybody who wants to participate, and we're going to mail them to some charities and some kids and people. They could have done that, but they didn't. So that tells me that there was something happened where somebody went, hey, legally we're on the hook if something happens here.
And you know what? That was a Christmas tradition. I've been on Reddit for about 9 years. I've done every Reddit Secret Santa. I've been burned a few times, but I've also gotten some really good ones. One I got either last year or the year before last. No, it was the year before last. Somebody took the time to go through all my social media that I had publicly available at that time. They made me handmade Christmas ornaments for the Power Rangers, which we still have in our tree. They made me a stuffed Psyduck. They made toys for Ayla, Logan, and Wiley. I got some Legos of the Master Chief, Captain Reynolds from Firefly. Just a bunch of crazy shit. The box must have been worth over $200.
And not to mention the time taken to make it all.
Yeah, like I just did the finale for Reddit ornament Secret Santa, and the person hand painted ornaments of Ayla, and then there's another ornament where it's Ayla, Wiley, and Logan with angel wings, and his markings are the exact same. So it's not just any white cat, which means that person would have had to have deep dove onto my Instagram or maybe my Facebook fan page, because that's not available on my public Twitter anymore.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, like that's incredible. You took the time to do that. Now, my gift for my Reddit Secret Santa did ship a little late this year, so I'm waiting on it. Although, this just made me think of this. So this is my minor Christmas miracle. For somehow, I got paired with the same guy twice on Reddit Secret Santa. That should never happen. So the guy lives in somewhere here in Ontario, and he's a brony. And I've started to move away from the fandom. I'm only keeping certain things now. So last year for Secret Santa, I got him a bunch of really cool books that were signed that I knew had come from some of my media contacts, stuff that I've reviewed basically. But I also gave him every My Little Pony comic I knew he was missing. I'm like, you give me a list, I'll fill out the gaps. He's like, what? I'm like, just trust me. So I mailed him comic long boxes that, and Alex, those things are not exactly light.
No.
I shipped him those, and Blair made him a bunch of Christmas crack, and I still had a sealed Zecora. Zecora, for you don't know this, but she was a My Little Pony zebra who is like very obviously African based, right? Like she glows in the dark. She looks cool. She's like a witch doctor or something.
Sorry, very African based. You know, she glows in the dark, as people in Africa are known to do.
Yeah, right,
is that what
sorry.
you're saying?
Yes. It's something everybody can do. But no, but I don't know how else to frame it.
On a level of 1 to Coconarte, how high are you on?
About a 4 right now. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure people from the Congo don't glow in the dark.
Yes,
but anyway,
yes, you know what you mean. Yes, I get the idea, the motif.
But yeah, and it's a cool looking character, and I forgot I still had one in the box. So this kid was so happy and so thrilled to do that, and that really made me and Blair feel special to know we could really, like, what are the odds of that, right? To get the same guy 2 years in a row. What are the odds?
It might have been that they were shutting down and they're like, hey, let's pair people with we know successful that they can get stuff for, which is cool. And I hope that in the future they come back with something similar, or there's a replacement service, which would be nice. But I think there's one Christmas tradition that you've forgotten to mention.
What's that?
What goes underneath your Christmas tree right away before the presents go down there?
My severed leg. Yeah. So my wife and our friend Lacey years ago, when we started doing the tradition, I remember them going to like Spirit Halloween or something, and they looked for a severed left leg with a foot. So they had to make sure it was the proper size. I think even the shoe size is accurate on it, actually. But yeah, they did that, and it's a funny joke. So now
instead of milk and cookies for Santa, you put a severed leg, hoping he can make it real and attach it to you.
Exactly. Now in our tree now, which I think you described it as pop culture throw up.
I think I said pop culture garbage, and then I corrected myself because I'm like, that sounds mean, but it's not. You know what I meant.
Yeah, we have a Jack Skellington in a Christmas outfit, which I normally don't like. Nightmare Before Christmas. I know, come at me, fight me. I can't remember. I think I got that in like a loot crate or something. Now we have a goat skull with horns in it. That's real, thanks to Liam. My sister gave me hand-painted ornaments last year, which look really, really nice. But we also have like Star Wars. We've got a bunch of Nintendo in there. Because I'm, I don't care and I'm never going to use them the way that they're intended to be. I turned a lot of my amiibos in the Christmas ornaments, and I just put like a little piece of string around their neck and just hung them in the tree. And
which
now
is cool. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I don't have the room to display these things as much as I'd want. So certain amiibos, like say Joker from, Persona, I'll keep out. But if it's like, I don't know, here's fucking Yoshi from Woolly World. You know what? You can live in the tree. You look nice.
And you're starting to get some homemade ones from Mama Richie. This year was homemade gnomes, I guess.
Yeah, like, and it's cool. Like, we actually bought a new Christmas tree. I think it was last year or the year before last for $20. It was normally like 80 or 90 at Walmart. Unfortunately, some of our lights have died on it, which kind of sucks. But it's cool. I actually decided to go tech with my tree, and I have a Google Home routine set up. When I go to bed, I have to say the Google command, and then the lights go off, the radio comes on to a certain level, and the Christmas tree turns on. And I have two separate routines on my Google that I can do, one for January till the beginning of November, and then one that's November until we take the tree down about halfway through January. And I just think that's kind of cool. I can say, hey, device, do this with Christmas tree. I'm trying not to say it now as I don't want to turn it on and off. But yeah, like, that's something I think that's kind of cool. Unless we're getting weirder stuff in our tree, I can see some pixel art I've gotten from fans over the years. One of the ornaments we got from last year on Reddit was a Christmas pickle. We have this weird piece of broccoli. That's another thing we got from Reddit. I see a Pinkie Pie. I see Pikachu. I see Derpy Hooves. I see the Griswold family RV that says the shitter's full. I see toilet paper.
And there's probably more we can go into next year even.
Oh my God. Yeah. I've got so many. Like, honestly, me and Blair always have a rule. We get to buy 3 or 4 ornaments. Everybody gets their own from our friend group. Shannon, we got her one that was not exactly, it's funny, but only to us because it's an internal joke. We've got, this year, our ornament to each other is Blair got me the Ghostbusters mini puffs where they're swimming in the hot chocolate. And
That's
it looks
cool.
Yeah, it looks really, really, really nice. And I think I got her Clark Griswold attacking the squirrel and it talks or something like that. I can't remember precisely what I got her. Then last year she got me Eevee, and I think we got her sparkly rainbow poop from Fortnite.
See what I mean when I said pop culture garbage?
Yeah, our tree is everything.
The pop culture garbage tree, but it's amazing.
Although it did help me win something, and that's another Christmas tradition. Okay, for whatever reason, between the end of November and the end of the year, this is my lucky time. I enter as many contests as I can, guaranteed I'll win something. My best year, I won $250 from Giant Tiger. I won $100 to Canadian Tire or something. And I won and I got and I got $100 from McCain Foods. And I think I won something from No Frills. This was all in a month.
Wow.
And the year before that, no, 2 years before that, I won an Xbox One via Pepsi and Doritos. So
okay, so
this is the time of year. If you want Mike to enter you in the contest, now is the time.
Yes, let's do that. And that I guess we're sort of winding down. This is pretty much I guess this is our replacement Christmas special. Just sort of a reminiscence on Christmas past for us, what we do now, and this is how we stay sane in times of the plague.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's nice to have these like fireside chats where you can just kind of talk about the holidays. And like I said, like, one of the biggest takeaways I want to share with people is I really used to hate this time of year, and I thought it was a cursed time of year. Like, I used to hide during Christmas for many, many years. And I'm so surprised how much my life has turned around since the dark times. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not of the Christian faith anymore, but I very much get the holiday spirit. I mean, the solstice has just passed. I'm reflecting upon some of my native teachings that I'm learning now. And I don't know, it's a time of year to reflect upon the good things that have happened in your life.
Yeah.
Also a time to take stock of the bad things too, and realize next year can be better. You can do whatever you want. Sure, your slate doesn't get completely wiped clean on January 1st, 2022. But you know what? The second you open your eyes on that first day of January, you have a choice to do something good if you want. And I think that's really important. I hope more people think about that this holiday season. Like, the last 2 years, let's be honest, have fucking sucked. But maybe we're coming out of this. Maybe you've taken the time to do something great with your life, or learn a new skill or something. Like, hell, even right now, me and Blair have made the promise to each other in 2022, we're going to learn sign language together, American Sign Language.
I mean, that's a good start for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good skill. So that's part of our New Year's resolution. For me, it's get my weight loss surgery. Let's just get this the fuck over with. Let's learn sign language. Let's get my first novel ready for publication, and let's rock and roll. So I don't know, Alex, what are your final reflections upon the year and holiday season in general?
Honestly, pretty much the same. It's been, you keep your nose up, keep looking forward. Everybody has moments where they're down, or their anxiety is up. Those times pass. Don't get so stressed out about Christmas or the New Year. It is, they're just figurative days. If you can spend time with family, great. If you can't, it'll make you cherish when you can again, which is, Christmas isn't just the day. Like, I know there's the religious aspect, but the togetherness thing, if you can't make it to visit your family at Christmas because of multiple reasons, then what you can do is
call them.
It could be, and it could be February, but let's say before you were able to visit somebody or do whatever, you know what? Then you do your Christmas in February. It's all about the family aspect. It's not, don't let the commercialism aspect, or let the the religious tradition aspect of it overwhelm you if you feel that you're obligated to do something that you just can't.
Yeah, like, how does that famous quote go? Christmas doesn't come from a store, something so much more, or something.
Yeah.
And
yeah, whatever. Picture a good quote in your head and attribute it to us.
Yeah, go for it.
And that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, you can close out the show. I don't have much more else to say other than, we'll be off
back in January.
We're gonna have stuff every Saturday starting in January with the Stargate stuff. Other than that, you can message me, I guess, online. Any of our social channels for the website I'll get. I'll still be monitoring emails and that. But other than that, I'm going to go into a dark corner and hang out with my family and avoid all things website related for at least 1 week.
Yeah. So I guess to close out the show, folks, once again, thank you for joining us here on TWIG. It's been a pleasure to serve with you for the last 15 years. I hope you and your family have the best holiday you can, be it a religious observance, whether it's getting together on Zoom or Discord, or even if you have the opportunity to interact with your family physically. Please follow local healthcare measures if you can, as best you can. If you can get a booster shot, please do, because it's the only way we're going to get out of this. And I suspect things are going to change anyway. But ultimately, be good to each other. Know when to walk away if that's a thing that happens at Christmas. No harm, no foul if you don't want to cause more discord. But do something good for somebody. If you can donate to a charity, do so. If you can help someone, do so. And just go into 2022 with your head held high. We're going to get out of this sooner or later, I hope. And happy holidays, guys, from us here at This Week in Geek. I've been Mike the Birdman, joined with Alex the producer. And until next year, be excellent to each other. Catch you guys again next year, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
Oh boy.
Wait,
I made the mistake.
How many milligrams?
At least 70. The problem is I forgot my stomach was empty, and then I was like, oh dear shit.
I took one last night, but I had still food in my belly, and I was like, oh, it didn't really kick in until I realized that, like, I was like, oh, I don't have any leg pain. And then I was like, oh, I'll take another one. And then I'm like, oh wait, that's 40 milligrams, and for me that's a fair bit. And then I was out.
Okay, so I went to bed at like 6:30 this morning. Liam and Blair came back from getting Christmas hampers at 8:30, and I hear Liam, it woke me up. It was like, oh my god, his balls are out.